Good afternoon, everybody. It's Craig and John from the Hill & Clark Boston Letting Office. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Craig.
Just coming with an update. As we did last week, we said to you we wanted to talk to you about Brexit and other pressing matters that are currently happening within legislation, mainly within the rental market, and obviously keeping you guys updated. Now, as you're probably more than well aware, last Friday, the 31st of January, the UK effectively left the European Union. What now happens is a year-long transition period effectively will take place, and basically we will navigate ourselves out of Europe, hopefully with a good deal, or so we hope, John. This will expire on December the 31st, 2020. Assuming the regulations are successful, the new agreement of future relations between the UK and the EU should effectively take place on the 1st of January 2021. Now, this week I'm personally going to be focusing on house prices, so I'm going to give you a little bit of information around things that we've looked into. Not all this information has come directly from myself. Some of the information I'm going to present to you though is also from a personal nature, so we have also sourced some of the information as well. From our point of view, Brexit is a bit of a it's a difficult situation at this present moment in time. The house prices within the market are looking to be stable. There doesn't appear to be any crashes appearing at this present moment in time, but we will make sure that we keep you updated as things progress throughout the rest of the year. So, as a nation, we are obsessed about property speculation. In the autumn of 2018, the rumour was that a no-deal Brexit would lead the property market into a price crash. This would potentially be going up to a third of house prices house prices effectively would be affected by a third. So what effect would this have on homeowners and first-time buyers? Ultimately, a great deal of uncertainty. On top of that, the referendum results have certainly weighed heavy on the housing market, as potential movers decide to wait to see how things pan out. People have left off buying and selling due to dips in price of the market, whilst others who had no other choice but to enter the market during this uncertain period were entering what we would class as a Russian roulette period. Following the Conservative landslide in December, there was talks of a Boris bounce. Given government has now had a majority, we would hope to see some of the uncertainty lifted, allowing for greater buyer and seller activity. Experts within the field of property have warned that statements such as the Boris bounce can be misleading. Ultimately, what happens will be down to you, the individual, with your wages and what you can afford to borrow. This will determine if market activity increases over the next sort of 12 months. Governments are well aware of this, hence the increase with the Help to Buy schemes and the shared ownership incentives that are in place already. On top of this, the interest rates have also been kept low. Part of the reason behind this was following the previous property crash in 2008, because the market is more competitive, and this has helped to maintain house prices as they currently are relatively high level. However, should interest rates rise significantly again, it would become more expensive to borrow, and as a result, house prices could fall. The government's budget is due in March this year, and although there currently remains a sense of stability, there remains a sense of uncertainty at the same time around areas such as overseas buyers having a potential stamp duty increase. This alone would have an impact on a property value throughout the UK. Finally, we are aware that government has plans to introduce new mortgage incentives to help young people on the property ladder. These incentives are yet to be announced. So what does this mean? Just a stamp duty increase could lower house prices. A helping hand for young people borrowing could see the market improve further as they were with the Help to Buy schemes. So, from my point of view, plenty to think about in the sort of coming next 12 months when it comes to whether it's the right time to buy. None of us really know, and as I say, we will do our best to keep you updated. But now moving over to John, with some more pressing matters that come into effect this year. Over to you, John.
Well, let's talk about all things lettings, Craig. Over the past 2 or 3 years, as you well know, there have been quite a number of changes within the industry, particularly in relation to different parts of legislation, and that's going to continue in 2020 and beyond. In fact, even up to about 2023, there will be changes coming within the industry. Some of it will affect agents, some of it will affect landlords. The most current thing, and I did allude to it last week, is the electrical safety regulations that are due to come in later this year, subject to agreement by both houses of Parliament. All new tenancies from the 1st of July of this year will require an electrical safety certificate for the actual property. This has been due to the fact that the government have laid down safety standards, and these regulations, they come in later this year. All fixed electrical installations will need to be inspected and tested at least every 5 years. The regulations state that a landlord is required to obtain a report from the electrician as to the result of that inspection and supply it to the tenant within 28 days, and retain a copy for themselves as well. So if you think about it, we've had gas safety regulations since the late 90s. And what are the two most dangerous things in your property? Gas and electric. So this one is way behind. Landlords may say, well, this is another burden. On the ongoing legislation side, it's going to cost them money. But in reality, I know at Hill and Clark, we've always said that best practice is the main thing. We've always tried to, where electrical situations are concerned with PAT testing, etc., we must have that done. And we advise landlords to do that. This is now putting something concrete, whereby we've actually got some legislation that's going to say, hey, these houses have got to be kept up to a good standard. That protects the tenant, and it also protects the landlord. It protects the landlord as well. As I say, these certificates last for 5 years. They must be done and ensure they're done at least every 5 years. And if you think about it long term, if a landlord decides after, say, X number of years they want to sell the property, then there's no reason at all why, a bit like with your EPC, you've got to have one of those before you can sell it. It's another addition to your selling paperwork, if you like, to ensure that the property is fit to sell on. So it's not all bad news, and it certainly does protect the tenant. Other details within it are that upon request, the report must be provided to the local housing authority within 7 days. So if Boston Borough Council, for example, wanted a copy of it, it's got to be provided within 7 days. As I said, it's got to be provided to a tenant within 28 days. If you breach this, if a landlord breaches it, the consequences are quite significant, however. The local housing authority can impose a financial penalty of up to £30,000, which is pretty big. So it's a very important piece of legislation coming in later this year, and certainly from the 1st of April next year, all existing tenancies will need to be have this certificate as well.
Definitely.
So looking at the short term, 1st of July will need to come in. That's new tenancies. So if you're putting a brand new tenant in from there, yes, you will need a certificate. Equally, whereby a tenancy is being renewed, that is classed as a new tenancy, the same will apply again. And I say then for existing tenancies, that will be April of next year. So, as I say, it will bring it up on a par with gas safety certificates, and that can't be bad with regard to safety for properties. And I say it safeguards both tenant and the landlord ultimately.
Definitely. Great stuff. Thank you very much for that, John.
No problems.
Just to make you aware, obviously, as we said at the start of the video, we'll be doing sort of another sort of 3 videos on top of this with regards still around Brexit and obviously legislation changes. Each week the topics will change. Next week my focus is going to be more towards the rental side of things and how Brexit's affecting that as a landlord and as a tenant. So we do appreciate Hill and Clark. The majority of our custom here at the Boston office at least comes through from a rental factor. So if there is anybody anybody that you feel may benefit from that, please copy the link below, which will give you our Facebook link and allow you to obviously make people aware that we're out there and we are trying to give sound advice at the same time, and make sure that we're keeping you guys safe within obviously legislation means, and obviously keeping you up to speed at the same time.
And I shall have a look at Section 21s. A lot of talk that they're going to be abolished, so we'll have a quick look at that and give you an update as far as I can in relation to it. And then in future weeks we'll look at other topics, one which is shelving up, which is ROPA, the regulation of property agents, the consequences of that for agents, and the consequences for landlords beyond that. So
plenty to think about.
Just going back to the electrical situation, if you do have an agent yourself and they've not spoken to you about this, get onto them and find out why they haven't, because they should be keeping you informed. If you're a landlord who looks after their own property, then as Craig rightly says, if you want to ring us, contact us here, then please do so, and we'll only be too happy to give you some advice.
Definitely. All the best. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Take care.